Shalom, welcome to the Jewish View. My name is Rabbi Nachman Simon with the Chabad House of Dummer, together with my co-host Mark Ronich of Statewide News Service and jbiztechvalley.com.
Well, Rabbi, as we tape this program, it's the day after Election Day, so of course we have to bring in the assemblyman from this area. We have our good friend Phil Steck, who's a Jewish assemblyman, so welcome back to the Jewish View. It's great to see you.
Thank you very much, Mark.
Phil, I could say Mazel Tov.
Mazel
It's
Yes.
a nice Jewish...
That fits.
Gives a Mazel Tov.
So looking at what happened last night, what's your assessment and how sobering was it, and what do you look forward to?
Well, I mean, I have a competitive district, as does Angelo, Santa Barbara. The people in the Albany area tend to be used to districts that aren't so competitive, like Pat Fahey's and John McDonald's. But, the town of Colonie, where which is the largest part of my assembly district, is really an even race between a Republican and a Democrat. So
Yes, the enrollment is equal.
about
the same, pretty
even,
much.
yes,
Okay.
it's about even, and
Niskayuna is Democrat. No?
maybe slightly
Yeah, and then Schenectady certainly.
is Democrat, but Schenectady also has a long history of going back and forth between the parties, unlike, for example, the city of
Well,
Albany.
But not since Gary McCarthy.
Well, Gary McCarthy barely won his election. So, and Paula Mahan in Colonie had 2 elections that she won by 300 votes each. So, I think in a year where Democrats were very unpopular and the governor was very unpopular in my district,
Sure.
people tend to identify folks with the governor if he's from your party, no matter how much you might disagree with his approach. At the end of the day, I was extremely happy with the results. We won Schenectady County by 16 points, which was huge. The governor lost Schenectady County by 9. And then in Colonie, we won by 4, so the total margin was 8. Angelo, Santa Barbara
Had a close one.
had a very close race. He only won by 4 points. Now, there were other factors going on there, too, because the Katchik-Amador race was out in that area, and that was bringing out people probably to vote for Amador at the end of the day. I don't know what the turnout was like that much. Everybody said it was good. I'm not so sure. I didn't study that yet.
Yeah, but with your race, I mean, you had you had an opponent that I don't think ever ran for office.
And that's not true. He had
Oh.
run for town board in the town of Colonie.
Okay. Oh, I didn't
Yeah.
realize that.
Mhm.
Okay. So was he a popular figure? I mean,
I don't think the election had anything to do with my opponent.
Okay.
The main
I-
themes that he was running on, constantly bombarding people with, was to get rid of Common Core, and that linking me with Sheldon Silver, who statistics show is not very popular in my assembly district. So I think his vote was an anti-vote.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't a vote necessarily for Tom Jesuits.
Okay.
Um,
I mean, you were quite eloquent in the debates, and you had better handle on the issues than he did.
Well, I think the one thing that disturbs me the most about the discussion is that his views on economic issues are just really patently absurd. I mean, he's claiming that we can restore education fundings levels back to 2008, and at the same time cut taxes, and we're going to have that old magic where you cut taxes, you get so much economic activity that you raise all the money you need, and therefore you can fully fund education. That approach, when you're spending lots of money and lowering taxes, that generally equals bankruptcy. And if he had run a business that way, he wouldn't have made it past the first 4 months.
And he was a businessman.
Right,
He
but
does,
people take a
right.
different view with government. The funny thing is they say run it like a business, but then when that wouldn't result in fully funding education or something else that might be popular with voters, they kind of throw their business experience to the four winds.
Well, I have to tell you a funny story because I was at the Carrot Festival and I was introducing someone else to a crowd from one of the synagogues who was sitting around the table, and Tom happened to come over and was introducing himself, and all of a sudden, one woman, elderly woman, said, "You know what? I'll vote for you just because you look so handsome." Because of the way you look.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's like, is that really how you cast your vote? It's like, really? You know?
I don't hear
Is
too many of
it a beauty
those.
contest? Is it really a beauty contest? I don't
Handsome
know.
guy, but listen, now
Anyhow,
it's
that
a
was
new situation where the Senate is now Republican. Of course, you're an assemblyman, I know, but obviously you have to work with them to pass a bill. You have
True.
to have a majority of both houses. So how do you see that as a situation coming up? I mean, it's going to be more difficult, or
Well, I
you
mean-
have any way you worked anyway with the Republican senators in the past?
Yeah, I mean, I have a bill that would allow municipalities to join county self-insured health plans. I think it's a very important government consolidation bill. It would save money for the municipalities and at the same time provide greater benefits for their employees, because the self-insured health plans have the best package of benefits. But I had Senator Griffo from Utica, former county executive, sponsoring that bill in the Senate. I think the main thing with getting Senate sponsors is you do have to work at it early.
Yep.
And we passed a bill unanimously in the Assembly, even with the Republicans. It was one of my bills. It was a wage protection bill, and I couldn't get it out to the floor in the Senate because I had a Democratic sponsor who the Senate Republicans didn't like. So
I guess you don't want
you
to tell
have
us who that is.
no, but I think what we need.
Well, you have to resubmit all the
we
bills
do,
next year anyway.
We do have to.
So.
We do try to go for Republican sponsors
Yeah.
of our bills, and you know,
Well, now
this
you got
is
more
New
of
York
it.
State.
Now you have more of them.
This is New York State. You know, the Republicans of New York State are not like the Republicans of Alabama.
No, but the governor
So we can work with them.
But the governor tried to paint the Republicans like that. He said they're extremists and there's no room in the state for them. And there's, he said, this is why you shouldn't vote for the Republicans. And,
I don't know. I mean, I think obviously the governor's a Democrat, and he wanted to move some legislation like the Women's Equality Act that would need Democrats to move. But I think that on the whole, New York Republicans are fairly reasonable. I think sometimes I think they like government spending as much or more as the Democrats, as long as it's in their districts.
uh-huh.
So, for example, the Long Island Republicans love to get the most money for education that
Sure.
they can.
Yeah.
So it's,
Ultimately, you have to work together. I mean,
Well,
if
I mean, you
everybody would
can't-
just be you wouldn't even get one bill.
well, this
you
is
can
the
get.
one thing that I think a lot of Americans don't really grasp about their government. We are sold this argument that we're the greatest democracy in the world, but our democracy was developed in a pre-industrial era where they were designing it basically to make it difficult for things to get accomplished. So you have the division of legislative authority between Assembly, Senate, and governor. It's very rare to have them all on the same page. So if we in the Assembly hold out for something that our constituents might want us to do, the result is we're not going to have an on-time budget. The state's going to incur additional borrowing costs. And you see what the result of that was in Washington when we had that kind of approach. So we get things from the governor that the speaker negotiates, and I think he does a very good job. That's one of his strengths. But we have to, in order to get those things, we do have to give up things to the governor that I might not necessarily support. I did not support that bond act that did pass. It didn't. I don't think it
The
passed.
computer.
Yeah, I
computer
didn't
for
support that
schools.
because bonds are. That's not really a capital expenditure. Those things
Right, there are 30-year bonds and the equipment that they're
are done
buying
in 4
is-
years.
yeah.
That was just a way to raise revenue without raising taxes, I think. So But that was something the governor wanted. I didn't agree with this program that we just had where we got these small rebate checks. I don't think that's a very efficient way to lower property taxes in the state. But again, we wanted more aid to education. We wanted to help our schools. The Assembly accomplished that. And we did double the governor's proposed aid increase for education.
Right.
So in order to get that, you have to make compromises. You can't dig your heels in on everything. I mean, he's the governor. I'm not the governor. And
Nor
so-
do you want to be.
Well,
And you know,
why
Well,
do you say that?
anybody would
Yeah.
want to be governor. You got $50 million or something, and I'll run. But, seriously.
Tom Golisano had it and he didn't win, so it's
Ah,
not all
that-
about the money.
Well, he's never major party line. But my point being that
Yes.
the governor has his viewpoint, and I think the Assembly has its, and the Senate has its,
Right.
and we have to compromise in order to produce effective government.
Let me just add, would you support the speaker for another term as speaker? Would you support Shelley Silver as another term for speaker?
I have supported the speaker. I think the speaker's been very good for my district. I haven't seen anything, I'm glad you asked this question. I haven't seen anything since I've been in the Assembly. And let's talk about this whole sexual harassment thing. You know, Dennis Gabrizak was a sexual harasser.
So was Vito Lopez.
Well, Shelley Silver did not elect either one of them.
Right.
And both of them are out. So it took a while, and there was some pain involved, but they're not there. So, and the fact that there might be people who have done some things with their vouchers or whatever, the speaker doesn't review everybody's vouchers. I mean, we're all equals in the body. We're all elected equally. The speaker is not our boss, and he's not responsible for what everybody does. Now, on the other hand, I think there have been improvements in in certain of the practices of the body as a result of some of these things. I introduced legislation that would have made all investigations of discrimination cases in the state independently investigated, whether it be of the governor's office or the municipalities or the Senate or the Assembly. You know, I think that's the best approach, and that is not a bill that I think is likely to be passed, but I think that's the correct approach. The federal government uses that approach. The EEOC is independent, although its members are appointed by the president, whereas our Division of Human Rights, it is not an independent body. The executive director is an official,
gubernatorial appointed.
right, appointed by the governor. So I prefer the federal approach, and the legislation that I drafted I basically would adopt the federal approach here in New York State. So I've been active on that issue. But another thing, too, that's important now, and that is, and I think in my district, from talking to my constituents, people believe in due process of law. Just because Fred Dicker accuses somebody of something doesn't make him guilty. So people are entitled to have the facts be developed and to see what happens.
An accusation is
Yeah,
not
I
a
mean-
conviction, right?
Right.
But you know, you got to understand, besides the Gabrizak and Lopez instances, there were others in the past. I mean, I have a list of over,
There were others in the past,
So,
and
before
certainly the Michael Boxley situation was, I'm quite certain, something the speaker wished had not occurred,
Right.
because that was his staffer.
staff, right, as chief counsel. to
But
the-
he was prosecuted criminally, and
Yes.
he was convicted of whatever the proof showed, and that was the end of that.
Right, but that's what everyone is looking at. But that's why I think your opponent had tied you to the Assembly Speaker also, because
Well,
you
here's
do
the thing.
support him.
Here's the thing. He doesn't get to vote for the speaker if he had won. So to say he'd vote against Shelley Silver is ridiculous. He doesn't get to vote for Shelley Silver. It's a choice of the Democratic Conference, in
Right.
essence. So,
But don't they, the way I remember the votes taken is that the Democrats, they say Shelley Silver, the Republicans say Brian Kolb, let's say.
right, and whoever
then-
has the majority, which we have.
No, and then once Brian Kolb is ruled out of order, I think, or once they don't approve it or something, then they go in the speaker, and most of the Republicans vote for the speaker because
I don't know that
I think it's
I don't
something like
recall that. But
Okay.
but the bottom line is that
So you're saying it's
my
just an up and
opponent
down
is
vote?
not to say he not vote for Shelley Silver for speaker. He's not going to vote for Shelley Silver simply by virtue of being a Republican.
Okay.
And
Well,
but
anyway,
again, I want to
yeah.
go back to this. I get a little tired of this particular issue.
So do I.
I think that the speaker has been good for my constituents.
Yeah.
The Nanotech Center that we have, which has been very good for our economy, which is a program I agree with, in contrast to the chip fab plant, which I don't, and when the tax-free zones, which I don't. The speaker was very instrumental in the Nanotech Center, and I think the speaker was very instrumental in increasing aid to education in my district. So I think that, look, the speaker is, I'm well aware, is not the most popular person in my assembly district, and it's always easy for the opposition to just run on that basis. They did it with Jennifer Whalen. They did it again with Tom Jesuits. I don't think that's an important issue.
Right, it's not.
So I think we ought to be talking about the substance of what we're going to do for
Okay.
the state and for the district, not saying things that are nonsensical like repeal the Common Core, which would cost us millions and millions and millions of dollars in federal aid, that the school districts would end up losing money.
So let's talk about what you plan for the next.
Well,
for this coming session.
I've focused on trying to do things that would make life easier for my constituents and for the municipal governments that operate in my assembly district. Again, I talked about consolidating the health insurance at the county level. That's important
What
to me.
about your committee assignments? Do you want to see a shift in any of the ones?
I also want to mention having
Yeah.
the state take over Medicaid.
Okay.
I think we should be going in that direction. The governor pointing the finger at local governments, I think, is a little disingenuous when the state isn't doing anything to solve the problem of the fact that Medicaid is funded partially through local property taxes. That has nothing to do with our municipalities. So committee assignments, I have been on judiciary, children and families, transportation, but the two that I really focus on quite a lot are health and insurance. So I was fortunate to be on the health committee. I was the only freshman on that committee. And I have an interest in labor issues as well. I'd like to get on labor, but it's interesting with all these new members coming in. Boy, I'm getting senior fast.
That's right. You are, and that's part of and that's part of, I guess the license plates for the assembly are based on seniority. So
I don't use an assembly license
So
plate.
your number's getting lower again.
I don't know. Maybe
So
I'll get a
anyway,
better parking space. No,
maybe-
I like my parking space. I'm very happy with it. I have to park next to my colleague Dan Steck.
Oh,
It's very funny because he pulls it in his giant SUV and I have my little Prius plug-in. So I think the differences between Democrats and
And
Republicans
Republicans
are
are
quite
stated.
symbolized there.
that's funny. That's great.
We have to have a sense of humor in this
You have to.
business.
You have to. Otherwise, it's just drudgery.
Right.
Where, in terms of your, in terms of what your constituents were telling you during the campaign, and saying, "I wish that you could help us with this," what have you been hearing, and what would you be responding
Well,
to?
I mean, I think it varies in different parts of the district. I think in Schenectady and South Colony and Niskayuna, it's all about the schools. North Colony is a little harder because North Colony has a very strong commercial tax base and is pretty self-sufficient with respect to education funding. State aid is always important, but it's not as needed as it is, say, in the city of Schenectady, because they can't raise revenue through the property tax like North Colonie can. You know, I do think that there were certainly some folks out there who, the Common Core has been an issue. I don't think
There's nothing you could do about it.
well, I don't think that's true. I think there are things, we are trying to reform the Common Core, but there's really three different parts of it. One, you've got the standards themselves. Second, you've got how the standards are implemented, or the curriculum. And third, you've got the testing. So I've been a very staunch opponent from the testing regime when the moment I ran for office. With respect to the implementation, I think we need to go back. If they're gonna put in the Common Core, then the state education department has to give the school districts a preset curriculum that's ready. Not have absolute chaos while each school district tries to figure it out on its own.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't make a lot of sense. And then on the standards, look, there's nothing wrong with the Common Core standards. The ideas behind having students strive to achieve more. I mean, if you ask for nothing, you get nothing in return. And the irony of it is that the Common Core standards concept came from conservative educators who believed that the education system had gotten too mushy after the 60s. So now we have all these Republicans attacking the Common Core, which basically was their party that brought it into being.
So let me ask you about the lottery, because I asked this about a lot of people and to a lot of people. Is that money from the lottery, which is always expanding, we're always taking in more money from the lottery, was that supposed to be instead of or in addition to what the normal allocation of state aid was?
It was supposed to be for education. Of course, some of it goes to administrative overhead to operate
No,
the
but I'm
system.
talking about what was supposed to go for education, the percentage.
Whatever-
Is that in addition to or
I think
instead
it's
of?
part of. I think that the lottery money was supposed to be enable the state to provide more aid. So it was not supposed to be a substitute for aid the state was already providing.
But
It was
it's turned
supposed to
out to
be in
be.
addition to.
But it turned out to be.
No, I don't
No?
think so. I think the lottery isn't the sole thing the state uses to give aid to schools.
Right.
It's
and
part of it.
His microphone came out.
Oh.
He killed the microphone. No, just take it off the side, yeah. And put
There it is.
Put it up through the, yeah, okay.
There you go.
This is,
Everything's good.
I told you I was a killer of
I told
microphones.
you, and when we were ready, I was
I
looking.
may have to hold it. There it goes.
There it goes. Okay,
All
thank
right.
you.
So,
Okay, so the lottery was supposed to be in addition to state aid.
right, it was supposed to
not in
improve
a-
our ability to give funding to the schools.
And you believe that it's achieving that purpose?
Not enough, because I
Okay.
think the money is taken, like is typically the case in government, for other things. I mean, you think on the federal level, you know, Lyndon Johnson raided Social Security to pay for the Vietnam War. Ronald Reagan raided it to pay for his military buildup. You know, Barack Obama gave people 4% back from Social Security one year for no good reason. So it's been subject to political manipulation, and so has the lottery. There is a percentage of it, which I'm not familiar right now with the exact percentage, that still goes to education. It's significant.
Yeah, like 40%.
Yeah, insignificant, but it
Right.
should be more like 80%.
Uh-huh. But what I'm saying is that the amount of state aid independent of the lottery money has probably, if you factor out the lottery money, you'd probably you see a decline in what the general fund
I'd
aid
have to
would be.
examine
But I asked,
it.
you know Jim Talon on the Board of Regents? He was a
Yes, I
he was
do.
Assembly
Yes,
Majority
yes,
Leader from
yes.
Bennington. So now he's on the Board of Regents, so his
Yes.
whole thing was education. So I asked him a few months ago about this, and he said if you factored out the lottery money, you would have people from their county saying, well, we want that amount of money going to our county. And you'd have this huge fight, so they don't, he says that's why it's not factored
Well,
out.
you know, you had asked me what was on the mind of my constituents, and I think the Republicans did score some points with voters concerning this concept that we voted to send money downstate
Right.
for education. And originally what happened was Mayor de Blasio had proposed a 1% tax increase on people earning between $500,000 and $2 million, and using that money to fund pre-kindergarten. Governor didn't want to raise taxes on that part, so he took money from the general fund and enabled New York City to start this pre-K program. And for upstate, pre-K is still on a grant basis, so
Right.
you have to apply for that money. Now, in my assembly district, North Colonie doesn't have even full-day kindergarten. They don't appear to have the interest in pre-K, though I think pre-K is important because we have two parents working now in most instances.
Right, but then you have a break, so if you have the pre-K, then you don't have the kindergarten.
Right, so it's not feasible in
Right.
North Colonie until they went to full-day kindergarten. Niskayuna parents aren't typically very interested in pre-K. Schenectady's very interested in it, as is South Colonie.
Okay.
So there are different opinions all over the lot on that, but I supported the de Blasio proposal. I thought it was the right thing to do. The governor didn't. So again, when we talk about compromising,
Yeah.
we increased the general aid to education by double the governor's proposed increase, but on the other hand, the compromise was that we went along with his plan
Yes.
for pre-K, a plan which I don't agree with. But again, we can't,
It's all about compromise.
yeah, we can't, right, you can't be constantly fighting all the time.
So let me ask you, you want to ask the pay raise question, or should I ask?
All right, it's just, almost like a annual question about the assembly people getting a pay raise for themselves, which everybody will say, well, that's nice, I'd love to give myself a
Well,
pay
see,
raise too.
I think that the public would be much better served with a full-time legislature than a part-time one.
I don't
you
know,
know-
Mark doesn't agree with it. I also say, when I say someone works, then they deserve it, but, I mean, I'm just saying, we have good people, we have, including yourself, but, we have with state workers, they were, say, management, you get a promotion and you get a less of a salary. It doesn't
Oh, that's
sound
an
right.
absurdity, but with
But-
respect to the assembly, it's a little different. We're structured to be a part-time body. If we had a full-time body and we were paid full-time salary, of course, the salaries would be much higher.
How can you have a part-time job? I mean, you're working so hard. I see how
Well,
the
it's
assembly
not, I mean,
people-
I think with me, when we're in session, I'm more like a full-time assemblyman and a part-time lawyer. And then when session's over, I'm a full-time lawyer and a part-time assemblyman.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's very time-consuming. Plus, you have to run for a re-election, which is like having a third job.
That's right.
But the reality is that the public has made the judgment that they want a part-time legislature, and they're paying people salaries that are appropriate for that position. So, folks are going to go out and for the most part, unless they have someone who's supporting them or a business that operates while they're not there, which mine doesn't, because I have to do my cases,
So
then
you-
we have to go to our
So you're
regular
not
time.
in favor of a pay raise if it still stays a part-time
If it's
legislature?
pays part-time, I'm not in favor of a pay raise. If
Okay.
it went to full-time, I think it
Obviously.
needs to be adjusted as a full-time salary, much like Supreme Court judges are paid full-time. I mean,
Right.
why should the legislature, if it were full-time, be paid less? Why should the people that
Right.
make the law
Right.
be paid less than the ones who interpret them?
That's right, okay.
That doesn't make any sense
Was
to
there
me.
something we didn't bring up that you'd like to mention right now, or? Because I know that we could go on for hours talking about
Yes,
different
that's
issues.
probably
but-
the case.
Right.
No, I mean, I just, it's been a great experience being in the assembly. We've been able to, I think it's a learning process. I think we have some good ideas, and I'm hoping that because I have learned how it works a little bit more, we're going to have some success with some of the bills that I mentioned going
Great.
forward.
And when you, is there some unwritten rule about a 20-year term limit, unspoken amongst the Capital District legislators, because they you look at Jack McEnany, retired after 20 years, Ron Canestrari, and other people.
I just got elected.
I know you
Got a
did,
long
but
time to think about
I
it.
understand, but have you heard anything about
I have
that?
not heard
It's
anything.
because Neil Breslin is there 18 years and he just got reelected, and so he's coming up on his
Well,
20th. So we were just wondering if maybe you might look to the Senate or.
Well, I don't think so. For me, first of all, I have a district that is in Albany County and Schenectady County district. The Senate district overlaps only my own Albany County portion of it.
Right.
I'm in the majority in the
Right.
assembly.
Why
I'm
go
getting
to-
some seniority.
Right.
I could think I certainly can accomplish as much as an assemblyman as I could as a senator. The only thing that being a senator helps with is that because there's less senators, about half as many, you have more staff because the budgets are the same. So having more staff is helpful and enables you to do more things,
You have
and
a
that's
larger
good.
district too.
What's that?
You would have a larger district.
Yeah, you have a larger district. Frankly, I really like being part of the People's House. We're
Okay.
closest to the people.
Terrific.
I enjoy the door-to-door campaigning. That's my favorite thing to do. I wish I had the opportunity to meet more of my constituents face to face. It is still a very large district with
Yeah.
130,000 plus, and so being more exalted as a senator, I don't see any necessary virtue in
Okay.
that. I think we want to concentrate on doing a good job in the assembly. Certainly, we can get bills passed in the
Excellent.
assembly just as easily as in the Senate.
Okay.
All right, thank you very much, Assemblyman Phil Steck. Dad, we give you a mazel tov again for your new two-year
Yes,
term.
thank you,
And
Rabbi.
you did good work before, and I'm sure you'll continue good work for the people
Best
of New
of
York State.
success, yes.
Thank you.